In this video lesson, we're going to be looking at color matching and recoloring. Color matching and recoloring are important skills to have in commercial retouching studios. Clients often need to adjust the color of a product in post-production to make it reflect exactly the color that the product development department envisaged for the product, or to simply revert any color inconsistencies that happen during the production and post-production process. And sometimes, in order to limit production time and cost, one product may be photographed and needs to be recolored in post to display multiple color options. We're going to be looking at 3 ways of recoloring the lipstick in this video using 3 different methods: curves, gradient maps, and color layers on color blend mode. When recoloring or color matching, the client may provide a swatch, RGB values, or a hex code, which is a set of numbers you can dial in to get a color result for the specific colors they need. We're going to be retouching to match this shade of red. And we've got our hex code at the bottom over here, and our RGB values in these 3 blocks here, and we've got the CMYK values as well, but I'm going to be using this hex code, so I'm just going to Command C that, so it's on my clipboard. When recoloring with curves, a quick way to recolor is to reset the white point. You do this by double-clicking on the white point eyedropper in your curves palette, and you're going to set the color that you want to recolor any point that you pick with the eyedropper tool to. You have to step off the mask to be able to select the color of the image to reset the white point. I've made a alpha channel for the lips here so that we can easily select them. And I'm just going to get a curve, and I'm going to make sure I step off that mask. And then I'm going to double click on that eyedropper tool, and I'm going to add in the hex code that we're working with here. I'm just going to OK that, and it's going to ask me if I want to save the new target colors as defaults, and I'm going to say yes to that. Then I'm going to click on those lips. And as you can see, it's now recolored those lips. It's done this by taking the white point down within the RGB channels. So obviously that's now got the right color, but the highlights have been brought down because of that. What I want to do now is I want to double click on this layer, and I'm going to use Blend If. Blend If basically will tell Photoshop which parts of the image this layer should affect. I'm not going to use this layer, I want to use the underlying layer bar. If I pull this white node to the left here, you can see it brings back the highlights, and if I pull it all the way, it takes the effect off completely. So I'm going to take the white point to about there, and if I press Alt or Option, I can then split this and just have a bit of a gradient there as well in how it limits the image. So if we preview that, you can see it's brought back those whites. So I'm going to OK that. Now I'm just going to get my white point, and I'm going to reset it back to white. And that's how you recolor with curves. Let's turn this layer off, and let's look at gradient maps. So I'm going to go back to channels, and I'm going to get my lips alpha channel there. And I'm going to set my foreground and background colors, white and black back there. And I'm going to click on my gradient map. And as you can see, that's created a gradient map, and it's got the whites are the shadows of the image on our white, and the whites of the image on our black. So all we need to do is we need to double click on this bar, and I'm going to make the blacks of the image black and the whites white, just to make it a normal black and white image. And now I get these bar with these nodes, and if I pull the shadows up, I'll darken the image or darken the selected area. And if I pull the whites to the left, I'll brighten. And then this will affect how the gradient falls in the image as well. It'll just shift the midtones more to the whites or more to the blacks there. So I'm going to take this back to about the middle, and I'm going to add a point. I'm going to double click on the color. I'm going to add the hex code in there. And now if I want to darken it, I can put it to the right, and if I want to brighten it, I can put it to the left. And I've got these nodes here that I can adjust with as well. And I think I'm going to take that to about there. and maybe up that to there. So I'm going to OK that. Just a note that actually if we go back in there, you can add separate colors. You can add separate points and separate colors in there. You can change your black point to being any color, and you can change your white point to being any color. So gradient maps are really powerful tools, and you don't have to use blend if with them because they keep your whites white and your blacks black. Lastly, you can create a solid color layer with your hex code and change the blending mode to color. I'm just going to go in and get our lips, and I'm just going to go down to here and add a solid color layer, which I'm going to add the hex code. And if I change it to color blending mode, you can see that it changes the color of the lips, but this method is a little bit more tricky because it affects the color but not the saturation or the brightness. So you've got to do a little bit more work with it. And I think I'm going to get a curve, and I'm going to add another curve, and then I'm just going to darken this down slightly to get a similar luminosity. I'm going to adjust the saturation as well. And I can then now group these two. Then one last little tip is that you can get a pixel layer and you can put it onto color mode. Then you can get your brush and you can have it on a low flow, and you can paint in to correct colors in an image. If I wanted to even get rid of that red in the cheek, I could sample a color near it and I could just paint in to remove. And this can be really useful when dealing with color inconsistencies in an image. So that's just a quick, easy way to even out colors using a blank pixel layer on color mode. I personally prefer to use curves for these kind of adjustments, but it is a useful trick to have if you want to recolor small areas. So that's how you can recolor using curves, gradient maps, or color layers on color blending mode.